Hello. We'll be doing two videos for this channel. One will be from the Encyclopedia of the Paranormal, which would be the Roanoke Settlers, and then the next video would be a video for the Unsolved Murders. Roanoke Island. Roanoke is an island off of North Carolina coast, measuring about 19 kilometers by 3 kilometers. In the 16th century, the island would have been covered with untamed vegetation. In 1584, an initial expedition to Roanoke Island was dispatched from England, funded by Sir Walter Welsh. The explorer and adventurer had been awarded colony rights by Queen Elizabeth I of England, the second daughter of King Henry VIII. I'll probably be doing a video about that dumbass. As a special prize for his ocean-going exploits against the Spanish as a privateer or authorized pirate. The expedition represented a marvelous opportunity to cash in on nature's riches, but the rewards were not to be so easily won. On arrivals at Roanoke, this first expedition, under the leadership of Sir Reginald Greenfield, did not get off to a promising start. Their pressuring concerns were a lack of food, since their supplies had been ruined by seawater, and the presence of local tribes in the vicinity. Even though they were strangers in a strange land and dependent on the Indians for food, water, and information, the English chose a heavy-handed approach, and antagonism between the settlers and the indigenous population soon escalated to acts of murder. This is where the U.S. government decided to be fucking dicks to natives, especially with me being part Native American and part Native French Canadian. So that side of me is like piece of. But my part Irish side though, cheering, were the natives. Like literally. Greenfield decided to report back to England, leaving Ralph Lane and about 100 other men in a settlement that they were painstakingly hacking out of the wild landscape of Roanoke. He pledged to return in April 1586 with ships and supplies. Short of food and water, Lane further threatened the locals to secure their cooperation. Unsurprisingly, it was a policy that largely failed. Greenfield did not turn up in April 1586 as promised. When Sir Francis Drake stopped at Roanoke in June, a ragged band of Englishmen boarded his ship, headed for home with him. Greenfield turned up a few weeks later at the empty site. He deposited 15 men there before he too returned to England. Dumb fucks. In 1587, another pioneer group set off comprising 91 men, 17 women, and 9 children. Their leader, John White, who was a veteran of the first voyage, was told to pick up the 15 men from Roanoke and head to Chesapeake Bay to find a new settlement grandly entitled the City of Ralph. When they landed at Roanoke on July 22nd, 1587, they found the skeleton of just one of the men left there by Greenville, a poor man omen for what lay ahead. But the expedition navigator, Simon Fernandez, claimed he could not go to Chesapeake for fear of autumn storms, so the colonists were compelled to stay at Roanoke and establish their settlement there. Everything began on a note of optimism. Within a month, White's daughter gave birth to a daughter, and a little Virginia Dare was the first English child born in an American colony. Furthermore, White was hopeful of repairing relations with the local Indians, and he struck up an understanding with the Croatan tribe. However, his attempts at cordially with the other tribes were rebuffed. Hostilities became as tense as before, and one man, George Howe, was killed. Sorry, I had to do this, so it's like a bit easier for you guys to see. When it became clear to White that the long-term viability of the colony looked doubtful, he decided to go back to Britain for extra assistance. He left 117 people at Roanoke, including his daughter, granddaughter, and another newborn. That's going to be the last time he saw them. Now, international events played their parts in the fate of those on Roanoke Island. As White attempted to rally a return expedition, the Spanish sent an armada against England. Every high-capacity sea-going vessel was needed to defend Elizabeth's realm, and White found himself reduced to 2 small ships. Unfortunately, the captains of those vessels were more interested in picking up booty from enemy ships they'd encounter on the voyage to America than in reaching the stranded settlers. Eventually, they were attacked themselves, and the supplies embarked for Roanoke were stolen. White and the ships returned to the port in England with nothing. Conflict still raged between England and Spain, putting colonial ambitions on the back burner. It was further 2 years before White finally returned to Roanoke, landing on August 18, 1590, for what he imagined would be a happy reunion with his granddaughter on her third birthday. He found no one. The settlers had quite simply vanished, and a search of the area confirmed there was no trace of them to be found. But they had left just one clue. The name Croatoan was carved into one of the posts in the Roanoke fort where the settlers had lived, while the letters C-R-O were found on a tree in an area when spelling was impious. Croatan or Croton or Croatan was the name of both the friendly Indian tribe and of an island. It seemed to White that the settlers had departed and had indicated their destination as Croatan Island. He pondered why the signal did not include a Maltese cross, which would have indicated the group members considered themselves in danger. But there was no signs of attack at the Roanoke site, and White was confident that they must be in a safe haven. However, White's attempt to reach Croatan were repeatedly thwarted by bad weather, as though the elements were in a league against him. Eventually defeated, he returned at the bidding of his crew to England, leaving the mystery of the missing settlers unsolved. To this day, there has been no proof and explanation for the disappearance of all 117 people. It is possible that they were wiped out and attacked by hostile Indians, or perhaps even by Spanish forces keen to colonize the region themselves. Captain John Smith, who landed at Jamestown in 1607, you'll probably remember John Smith as a established liar and the Disney version of Pocahontas. It is not good on that part, like literally. Plus, in history books, Pocahontas wasn't actually her real name. That was a nickname she was given. And John Smith, he was way older than Pocahontas. And later on, Pocahontas would be turned to Christianity, and pledged herself to her husband. And they lived in England for a while before coming back, and Pocahontas died at sea, leaving behind her husband and child. I ain't kidding. Look that shit up. American history right there. Was certainly convinced that they had been horribly massacred. Unfortunately, there was no way of finding out the exact location of the Roanoke settlement, so archaeologists' probes are out of the question. And I did say John Smith is a fucking liar. He lied about the massacre at Roanoke. A lot of people, especially those who deep dive into ancient history, archaeologists, they would have a lot more of stuff going on. There are researchers literally looking into this stuff, archaeologists finding out random things like finding seafood, horses. Sometimes they had to cannibalize each other, but we as Americans who were born, raised, or immigrated into America, especially back then, it's like you don't have a lot of stuff to find out what truly happened. But some people believe word of mouth. But nowadays we're getting there to find out what truly happened. Where did they go? Did they go to the friendly Indian tribe that they befriended and lived there? There were possibilities and truth to it, because there were white kids being born into that Native American tribe that had some European genes to them. So there is a hint of truth that they did live with those Native Americans. Let me know in the comments down below if you think it's what your guys' thoughts are. One current opinion is that a terrible drought paralyzed the area at the time. Lack of food and fresh water could have driven the settlers to another site where they later died. Had driven the settler perhaps after turning to cannibalism. And I just said that. Alternatively, they might have resorted to boat construction in a desperate bid to return to England and perished at sea. In support of this theory, it was found that the pinnace or a small boat left by White was missing. Another theory maintains that Elizabeth's political subtext may have a direct bearing on the incident. While Welsh was an admirer in Queen Elizabeth, he also had a host of enemies at court, who probably envied his success in the colonies and his colonial rights. Modern-day investigation has suggested the Second Roanoke expedition was sabotaged primarily to put Welsh in the shade, not for the failure of Roanoke, but for another overseas misdemeanors. Welsh was finally put to death at the Tower of London in 1616 by King James I. So, the question to uncover the truth about the vanished Roanoke settlers goes on. The prevailing theory is that the English men and women were not killed, but were absorbed amongst the Croatan Indians, which I did say. The exact history of the Croatan Indians between the Roanoke settlements and the wholesale colonization of North America is indistinct. However, we do know the following lethal smallpox epidemic. The Croatans joined with the remnants of other tribes. The new group became known as the Lembi tribe, and evidence has emerged over the years to suggest that the members of the tribe have mixed blood. Indeed, in 1719, white hunters visit Robeson County, North Carolina, just 160 kilometers inland from Roanoke, where they find a tribe of usual fair-skinned Indians who spoke English. 1790 census of Robeson County Indians revealed that 54 of the 95 family names mirrored those of the lost colonies. Surely, this was more than just coincidence. And I did say that people went to, this tribe and lived with them, falling in love with each other, and so on and so forth. Let me know down in the comments.